What do wealthy people do with their money to become wealthy? Welcome back. This episode is going to give you insights into opportunities maybe you didn't even know existed before, why the wealthy people become wealthier, and those that don't, it's because they don't take time to understand and learn what the rich people do to become rich. I'm Doug Andrew. People ask in the 45 years that I've been helping people optimize financial assets, Doug, what's the secret? Well, I will share with you what the secret is, but it's really no secret. But I'm going to explain what multimillionaires and billionaires do. One of the very first things that these mega successful people do is they learn and discipline themselves to set aside money, and they learn to live on less than what they earn. Usually they save 50% of their income, but they say at a minimum you should save 20% of your income. Most Americans only save between 1% to 3% of their income, and then they wonder why they don't get wealthy, and then they save up and they spend it on depreciating assets, justifying it. So if you keep doing that, you're never going to become financially independent. But let me show you what the multi-millionaires and billionaires do, and I'm going to give you some actual examples and stories because a lot of people don't really understand that many of them sometimes took higher risk ventures in order to make money, but they all had a foundation, the ones that I've interviewed. And I was just meeting with a billionaire just a few days ago. He admitted that everything he does, he has a very solid foundation where he puts his serious cash, and any money that he sort of plays with, and this guy plays with hundreds of millions, he knows that 40% of the investments he puts his money into will probably lose. But he says, I've learned to recognize if it's a losing proposition sooner than later instead of hanging in there and waiting and waiting and waiting. And so he gets out. But he just knows 40% of the places where he puts his money, he will lose, 60% he'll gain. It's cutting the losses as quick as possible. I thought that was pretty insightful. But let me give you a few examples. Walt Disney. Now, Walt Disney I admire. He actually went broke 7 times and had a nervous breakdown before he finally made it. I always love how he shared that his salvation was Mickey Mouse. When he was really just broke, he told his brother, hey, I have an idea. Now, Walt was afraid of mice. Did you know that? And he says, I have this idea. I'm going to make a cartoon that makes a mouse look friendly. And his brother goes, that'll never work. Well, Mickey Mouse has been the #1 entertainer in America for 70 years, a recession-proof mouse. That's what Disneyland was built around, and so Walt could see opportunities. Now we remember Walt. Most people don't even remember Walt's brother's name. It was Roy. But see, Walt Disney, when he got into trouble, he was ready to he was destitute. After failing in the pursuit of traditional means of financing to build what would become Disneyland, which we all love, Walt decided to provide his own financing because he couldn't get any loans. And so a large part of this capital came from what I call his own family bank, which is funded with the same instruments that I fund my family bank, a maximum funded life insurance policy. This is a life insurance policy that's designed for living benefits, for putting money aside and having it grow at a nice rate of return of 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10%. I've averaged 10.07% net tax-free on my life insurance policy for the last 25 years. People go, huh? I've never seen an insurance policy do that. You've never seen one structured like this. So you use it for death benefit, that if you happen to die, it'll blossom and help those that you leave behind be financially independent. But he, like I used my insurance policy, used it for living benefits. So he was able to borrow money from his cash value life insurance to fund Disneyland, and that's how Disneyland got started. Did you know that? That's what Walt Disney did. He had his own family bank, and he used it with maximum funded life insurance. Who else did that? Do you know who Ray Kroc is? He is the one that founded McDonald's. He borrowed money from 2 cash value life insurance policies. His family bank is what I call it. And he did this to help cover the salaries of key employees. He also used some of the money to create an advertising campaign around the emerging mascot of Ronald McDonald. That's where he did that. So, is this giving you some insights? These mega wealthy people had their own resources. It's what I call becoming your own banker. They used their own resources and borrowed money. Now, if you don't know how to do this, in my maximum funded insurance contracts, which I call the laser fund, if I need money, $100,000, $200,000, $1 million, I borrow it out at 2% and they keep paying me 2%. So it costs me nothing to use my money. But most of the time, I take the second option. I borrow out $1 million and they charge me 5%, the insurance company. That's $50,000. But they keep crediting me whatever the index does. Do you know in 2017, I had many clients that did what I do. They borrowed $1 million. The insurance company charged them 5% or $50,000, but they earned 25% that year. So they earned $250,000 on their insurance policy. While it was earning that, they were using the money also for something else, and they were being charged 5%. They made $250,000 in interest on their insurance policy. They subtracted the 50. They netted 20% or $200,000 on their money while they were using their money for other purposes. That's what wealthy people do. One more example, Penney. Do you know the stock market crash of 1929 and the ensuing Great Depression devastated the stores, the Penney stores back then? James Penney was able to borrow against his cash value life insurance policies to help the company meet its payroll and the day-to-day expenses and help it stay afloat during the Great Depression. Because insurance companies went through the Great Depression with flying colors, paying 2.5%, 3.5%. Do you know that banks closed their doors? 40% never opened their doors again. Some real estate in the Great Depression dropped as much as 80%. Where do you think smart people, the multimillionaires and billionaires, had their money in the Great Depression? In insurance companies. That's what the mega wealthy people do. So are you getting a glimpse of what wealthy people do with their money to become wealthy and protect that wealth? Let's use a modern day example here, right up to current events. This is David Walker. Now, maybe you've heard of him. He was the U.S. former Comptroller General for the General Accountability Office of the United States, Treasury, the government, okay? Now, he resigned, actually, from being that during the Obama administration. Do you know why? Because in 2008, this country was on the verge of collapse, the monetary system and everything, and he wanted to tell the American public the truth of how serious trouble we were in unless certain things took place. And the administration would not let him do that. And he said, I'm resigning. Because he wanted to tell the public the truth. And he went out after that. He knew how rough things were going to be. And so he got his money out of the market and put it into maximum funded life insurance, like I call my laser fund, because he knew how serious the economy was. And of course, most Americans that had their money in the market lost 40% in 2008. And so this is what the smart, savvy people do that know what's going on in the world and the economy to protect their money. So here's the takeaway. The wealthy people, they understand the 3 marvels of wealth accumulation. Compound interest. I've earned compound interest averaging 8 to 10% on my max funded insurance contracts for 45 years. I've earned some years 25%, some years as high as 55%, but on the average about 10%. But it's tax free. So mega wealthy people know the second marvel of wealth accumulation isn't just compound interest, it's tax free. That's what the Rothschild said. See, Einstein said, oh, the 8th wonder of the world is compound interest. No, Rothschild says no, the 8th wonder of the world is compound interest tax-free. And that's only accomplished really in maximum funded life insurance contracts where it stays tax-free and then blossoms when you die. The third marvel is safe positive leverage. The ability to own and control assets with very little or none of your money tied up or at risk in that asset. And that's why the mega wealthy people, they go, okay, I'm going to own these skyscrapers, these buildings, I'm going to own all of them, but I'm not going to tie up my equity in there. I'm going to keep that over here safe in a laser fund so it's liquid. And if the skyscraper goes down in value or gets toppled in a terrorist attack, their money's safe because it's not in the building. It's over here in the laser fund. I do that too. They can borrow money for the real estate at 3% tax deductible, a net cost of 2%, and they make 8 to 10% on the laser fund. This is how the rich get richer because they're using OPM, other people's money, the bank's money, and they only pay 2%, 20,000 on every million, but they make 80 to 100,000 a year on every million they borrow by putting it in the laser fund. That make a little bit of more sense to you? So I would recommend you look into a laser fund or several. Most of these mega wealthy people have sometimes 12, 15, 17 laser funds. I have several. My kids all have several. And this is what you use for your family bank so that when you get into trouble like Disney, McDonald's, Penney did, they have access to their money even though there was a depression going on and banks were closing their doors and real estate was falling 80%. They had access to their money. They didn't lose. You could do that too. I would recommend you watch this episode here to sort of understand the difference between a battery approach to a generator. If that resonates with you, you'll be given the opportunity to go to the website laserfund.com, which is the title of my most recent book, and I'll send out a copy of that book to you for free. It's a 300-page book. You just pay $5.95 shipping and handling, and you can become empowered so that you can start doing what wealthy people do, and you will become wealthy.